Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brian Hanley. Welcome back to Steelers Almighty. This is a continuation of our series, My Position by Position. Today, we are talking wide receivers. What the Pittsburgh Steelers look like in 2024, what they are going to look like, in my opinion, in 2025, who needs to stay, who needs to go, free agents, all that good stuff, including who the Steelers may draft in the 2025 draft. So we're taking a deep dive into the position today to see what the roster may look like in this upcoming season. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to hit the notification bell, and always get into those comments. Let us know your likes and dislikes. We absolutely appreciate it. Don't forget about our memberships. Memberships are also available on Steelers Almighty. We have a ton of content that is currently out there for you guys to ingest. So please make sure that you sign up if you want to help support the channel in that way. You can. But without further ado, let's get into this. So first things first, as far as the wide receiver group for 2024, remember the season ending grade that I gave the Steelers receivers was a C. There was a lot of problems on the offensive side of the football. But for being honest, look, it wasn't always the quarterbacks. It wasn't always the offensive coordinator or the offensive line or the receivers. It was a collection of bad play, good play, just mediocre play altogether, which kind of sums up what the Pittsburgh Steelers were, just mediocre. And the offensive receiver group, it just wasn't any different. So taking a deep dive into it, let's see who needs to stay, who needs to go. Now, currently, the free agent list for the Steelers, Mike Williams, not going to be back with the Steelers. I don't think the Steelers should bring him back. Look, we didn't use Mike Williams in the way that we probably should have or could have used him. I thought he was a great addition when they brought him on. I'm like, a fifth-round pick for Mike Williams? Yeah, it makes some sense. But then we didn't use him. The first game he's with the Steelers, he makes the game-winning touchdown against the Commanders. I'm thinking, you know what? Okay. And then he didn't get a pass thrown his way for the next 3 games. And I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, what did we bring him here for nothing? Is he hurt? Can he not ingest the offense? Like, what is the issue here? Just didn't use him. Started to use him a little later on in the season, but it was too late by them. No continuity. I just thought he was mismanaged. But because of that, we didn't change coordinator. We didn't probably not changing the offensive philosophy. And since that's the case, I'm just not sure that Mike Williams has a place with Pittsburgh. I wouldn't mind having him back, but I just don't think it's smart. If we're not going to use him, then just don't bring back Mike Williams. Next up is Scotty Miller, which they already got rid of Scotty Miller. And I'll be honest, I'm not sure why Scotty Miller was on the football team. I'll be quite honest with you. Look, we've got guys named Roman Wilson that's on the team. Look, we'll get to him and some of his deficiencies later, but I felt like he could have got the reps that Scotty Miller got. I'm not saying that Miller didn't make any plays. I'm not saying that. And he does play a role on special teams, but the Steelers can do better. They can do better. There's no reason to bring Scotty Miller back to the Pittsburgh Steelers next year. Next up, we got Ben Skoranek. Now, Ben Skoranek, on the other hand, that's somebody the Steelers can use. Look, he got brought in. He's a big receiver, does great special teams work. That's number one. Great special teams guy. But also in the run game, see, you can put Ben Skoranek in, and even when you go to 11 personnel, you can bring him close to the line of scrimmage, and he acts like another tight end because he's so big. Great blocker in the run game. So should the Pittsburgh Steelers bring Skoranek back? Absolutely. We need to bring him back. The Steelers can use him. Again, it's not so much that we're going to throw deep balls and all this, but he can do so many different things. Versatility is a key. And they always say the more you can do, the more you should be kept around. The Steelers need to use that versatility with Skoranek. Yeah, bring him back. Absolutely. Tight end position, McCole Pruitt. I'm sorry. There's no reason to bring him back. Look, for him to get the number of snaps that he got this season, I thought was, again, coaching malpractice. I've said that on a couple of different things. Look, it's nothing against Pruitt, but he doesn't give you anything in the passing game. He was a marginal to okay blocker. There were too many times where he's supposed to be the lead blocker. blocking back on an inside zone or outside zone that he just didn't get the job done. 32 years old, the Steelers can find something better in free agency or even a late round draft pick to take the case and somebody that's going to go down and play some good special teams for you. But yeah, no reason to bring back Pruitt. Now, for the guys that are currently under contract, we'll start with George Pickens. Look, he's unquestionably the best offensive weapon that the Steelers have on their football team this year. We'll get to some of the things that I believe will help him, but you got to bring him back at this point. For the next 2 years, technically 3 if you franchised him twice, but for the next 2 years, Pickens can be a Pittsburgh Steeler. You know, he's last year of his contract, and you could franchise him a year. But signing him to an off-season, long-term deal, the answer to that would be no. And I don't care if Pickens wants to hold out. If he wants to hold out, fine. I wouldn't even negotiate with him. Wouldn't even come to the table with him. With what he has done and his maturity-wise, there's no extension necessary at this time. We'll get to that when the time comes. If the Bengals don't extend or haven't extended Jamar Chase by this time, why the hell would the Steelers extend Pickens? I'm just throwing that out there. Either way, Pickens got to be part of this football team. If you're going to be as successful as you want to be, you got to have offensive weapons. We've been screaming about it. You can't go off and then trade them. Now, look, I understand the trade market out there and maybe what you can get back for them. And maybe you just want to start completely over and say, I'm tired of the attitude, but you're giving away a talent that, if you're talking just strictly talent, George Pickens is a top 5 wide receiver talent-wise. Now, is he a top 10 receiver in the league? No, because there's definitely more that comes with it than just talent, and he's got to be able to figure that out. But I think we give him another opportunity to do that. I was back and forth. I've been back and forth on it. You know, there was a time where I said you need to trade him. Just get rid of him and be done with it. I don't think you do that. What I think you do is you bring in competition that maybe motivates George Pickens. And if you can do that and say, hey, we got 2 or 3 guys here, George, you're not just the guy here anymore. If you can do that and it motivates him, maybe you get the best out of him and maybe he grows up a little bit. But absolutely, he's got to be a Steeler next year. Next, we got Pat Freiermuth. Look, there's no doubt that Pat Freiermuth's going to be back. We just signed him to a long-term deal, so he'll be back. Now, here's the positive. Pat Freiermuth got better as a blocker. Now, I know what you're going to say. He was just absolutely atrocious as a blocker previously, and he was. Now he's just bad. But that's progress. All you can ask is for guys to get better, and he got better at it. But totally underutilized in the passing game until late in the season. There's so many different things that you could have done with Pat Freiermuth. I know people are going to look at the Baltimore game where he didn't fight for a couple of yards when he needed to. I get it. I'm with you. But Pat Freiermuth, if used properly, is a top 10 tight end, pass-catching tight end in this league. He's that. Whether people want to agree or not or upset or not, he's that. The blocking aspect of it, I get it. Not very good. Well, let's not try to use him on the end line, on power plays or zone stretch plays. Let's not use him as a front side blocker. Just use him as a cutoff blocker on the backside. It's okay to do that. People did that for years. We can do that with him as well. But Pat Freiermuth needs to be a bigger part of what the Steelers do on offense in 2025. Next, we got Calvin Austin. Look, he's got to be a bigger part of the offense. First off, he's a great number 3 receiver. Great number 3 receiver. Didn't think that he got used enough on shallow crosses, maybe screens. There's just so many other things that the Steelers could have done with Calvin Austin that they just didn't do. Not to mention, they didn't throw it to him enough when he was actually open. That would be the one thing that I would mention is that Calvin Austin got open a lot where they just didn't throw him the ball. Maybe he wasn't the first or second read. I don't know. But all I know, he's out there running routes. You got time. He's open. Sometimes you just got to get him the football, and they just didn't do it enough. Like I said, he's not a number 2. He's a slot guy, but there's nothing wrong with those. You need those in your offense. He is an outstanding number 3 receiver. Clearly, we need to bring him back, but we got to use him properly. Got to do a lot more things with Calvin Austin. Next up, we got Darnell Washington. Old Mount Washington. So down on the goal line, they gave Washington 2 opportunities this season. Split him out. Once, they threw him a fade. He caught a touchdown. The next time it drew a pass interference penalty. Steelers got to do more of that. It doesn't matter if they know what you're doing. He's 6'7", going against a guy more than likely that's 5'10" to 6'1". Give him the opportunity. Just give him a chance, man. That's all I'm saying. Use him more in the passing game. You know he's an outstanding blocker. Do the exact opposite of what you do with Freiermuth. Freiermuth, you want him on the backside of outside zone plays and the backside of power plays going away, cutoff blocks, chasing down safeties. Darnell Washington, you can have him be at the point of attack when you're trying to run the ball right or left. Let him be that guy. It's okay if teams know what you're doing sometimes. Don't overthink it, man. I think the Steelers got into a lot of 12 and 13 personnel trying to overthink stuff. Don't. Line up. If you're going to run it, let him be your guy and be the lead guy. Period. End of story. Absolutely needs to be back. Needs to have a much bigger role in the Steelers offense moving forward because the offense just needs to expand. Got to expand. Whew, okay. Now we got Roman Wilson, people. Here's the deal. Roman Wilson gave us nothing as a third-round draft pick. Absolutely nothing. And that's troubling because teams, I mentioned before, a third-round draft pick, I've talked about this on several occasions, you're expecting that person to come in and produce for you. Barring an injury where you can't get on the field, we're expecting him to produce. Well, yes, he got hurt. The first day of pads, he got hurt. Then he came back. Then he hurts his hamstring. And then Mike Tomlin just basically, we're moving on from him, which you heard reports about him not knowing the playbook. I'm not going to believe that. What I'm going to believe is maybe he didn't take his rehab as serious as he should have, and he wasn't as available as quickly as what they thought, and they just moved on. At least I hope that's the case, because I thought Roman Wilson was going to be a big contributor by about week 6 of this season, and he literally did nothing. That's got to change. Clearly, we're going to bring him back. You're not going to give up on a third-round pick. At least I don't think so. We've seen other teams in the past, they get to year 2, and they're like, yeah, I'm sorry, we're done with him. He can't play. So maybe the Steelers won't do that. I think you bring him back, but if he can't play, y'all know my philosophy. Making a mistake is okay. Living in the mistake is where the problem is. And if Roman Wilson isn't able to play at the National Football League level, he's got to go. Bring him back, but if he can't play, there's no reason to keep him around. Now we go to Connor Hayward. Interesting. First off, a lot of people think Hayward's on the team because his brother's on the team. That's number one. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I don't know if I believe that. We've seen Connor Hayward do a couple of good things. The one thing that I will bring out is as far as an H-back, he is a horrible H-back blocker. Why the Steelers want to continue to use him as that, I still don't know why. We've seen so many times this year, he was supposed to block back on an inside zone. You block back a tight end going across the formation, block a defensive end, a tackle, totally whiffed. That might have happened 8 to 10 times this season, just whiffing on guys. That can't happen, but I don't know. He does stuff on special teams. If it brings harmony to his brother, I think you have to bring him back, number one, because we refuse to have a fullback on the team. So you got to have somebody in that position. 1 year left, bring him back, see what happens. I'm not mad at it at all. Again, he's a contributor on special teams, which you need. Decent catcher of the football, when we throw it, when we give him an opportunity. So he's not horrible there. He can contribute. Plus, you do need depth. You need depth. But as far as being an H-back blocker, I'm out on that. But definitely, you got to bring back Hayward. All right, now let's get into who is available on the free agent market for the Pittsburgh Steelers to bring in. Look, the big name that's out there that Steeler fans are clamoring for is T. Higgins. We've seen him up close and know what he brings to the table. Would he even come to Pittsburgh? That's the first thing. Would he even allow himself to come? Not to mention Cincinnati's making a big play to try to bring him back. But would he come to Pittsburgh? There's him. There is Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper is out there. There's a Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is out there. A Jawan Johnson as a tight end. He's possibly available. Now, Steelers bringing in a big name tight end, I feel like is something kind of is a little bit far fetched because you got Washington, you got Freiermuth, but hey, who knows? People can be traded, things can be moved around. So you at least got to take your look and do your due diligence when it comes to these other positions as well. So Tyler Conklin, that's another person that might be out there. And then Mike Gesicki, again, another Cincinnati guy. Like I mentioned, things can move around, people. It's we're not set in stone here. So these are all available free agent pass catchers that the Steelers have to do their due diligence on. You got to ask those type of questions. Now, who would be more realistic? I think Darius Slayton. That was somebody that I thought the Steelers should have tried to trade for last season versus Mike Williams or plus Mike Williams. Either one. I think Darius Slayton is somebody. I also think Chris Godwin. Now, I know he's got an injury history. I totally understand that. 29 years old. Um, but Chris Godwin, if you could tell me that Steelers could get him, we should absolutely take Chris Godwin. That he's a productive receiver. He gets open. He's got a great attitude. Maybe he could be somebody in the locker room that could help George Pickens and not only help him, but also put pressure on him for him to say, hey, I'm pretty good. I've been good in this league for a long time. You need to get to my level. I think that's something that would actually help the Pittsburgh Steelers or Chris Godwin. Tight end position, I like Austin Hooper. Um, Maybe it's somebody, again, we're pretty set at tight end, but if the Steelers want to make trades and move around guys and do that, I wouldn't be discouraged. I absolutely wouldn't, and that would be a guy at the tight end position that we could look to try to bring in. Now, as far as the draft is concerned, look, Travis Hunter, we mentioned him in our quarterback my position by position. He's also one of the top guys as far as receivers. So Tetiora McMillan out of Arizona, he's another guy. Tyler Warren as far as a tight end. I mean, there are some wide receivers or some tight ends that are out there, some playmakers that would be available if the Steelers wanted to jump up, not necessarily trade up, but draft some of these guys. I don't know that you could get some of these studs. I feel like they'd be gone unless the Steelers traded up. And I've mentioned this several times. Trading up in this draft is not something the Steelers should do. They have holes. And when you have so many holes, you don't just trade up giving away your ability to draft available talent to go get one person. You can't do that. You've got too many holes. If you only had one or maybe two holes to fill, that'd be something else. Steelers have a lot. Now, who should the Steelers go after as far as pass catchers? Emeka Ibuka, that is the first name, and I can never get his name right, so I apologize. Out of Ohio State, that's been linked to the Steelers, hell, since the fall. He's been linked to going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Savion Williams out of TCU, long strider. It's something in the mold that a Pittsburgh Steelers have. The thing is he the most crisp route runner? That's what the Steelers need on the other side of that, of George Pickens. Jaden Higgins. Now, Jaden Higgins is a bigger receiver with strides, but he is a good route runner. So for somebody that big, he is actually a solid route runner. This would be somebody that the Steelers could look. He's starting to shoot up draft boards a little bit, though. So maybe, if he's around a little bit later, and when I say later, third round, that's what I would mean. So as far as what the Steelers need, obviously Emeka Ibuka out of Ohio State and Higgins out of Iowa State. Those are the two guys I think the Steelers should look at. And if you take one in the first round and another in the third, I'd be fine with it. Absolutely fine with it. Again, depending on what happens with the draft, the Steelers might need to go to take two wide receivers in the first three rounds. I mean, that's how big of a need that they have at that position. So if they did that, I wouldn't be too upset with it at all. I think it would make sense. In the right circumstances, yeah, Steelers could make that happen. So that's what we got as far as the wide receivers and what the Steelers need to do. So I appreciate you guys again, as always. Remember to like, follow, subscribe, and definitely get in the comment section. Let me know what you do like, what you don't like. Continue the series on with my position by position. We appreciate you guys, and aloha.